Rain fell in gentle, hesitant drops that afternoon, painting the park in streaks of silver. The air smelled of wet earth and fresh grass, a scent that usually brought comfort to anyone seeking solace. But not today. Today, the laughter that usually bounced from the swings and slides was absent. The benches were wet, the slides empty, and the park seemed to hold a quiet sadness, as if it knew the weight of someone's heartache. In the middle of it all, a small figure sat curled on a swing, shoulders shaking, his tiny fists pressed against his face as if trying to hold back a torrent of emotions too heavy for his age. Clara Thompson, a young nurse in her mid-20s, had just finished a long shift at the local hospital. Her scrubs were damp from the drizzle, her shoes muddy from hurrying through puddles. She had intended only to walk through the park to clear her mind, to breathe in the quiet after a week filled with emergencies, patients' tears, and exhaustion. But something made her pause when she saw the boy. Something tugged at her heart. He wasn't just crying, he was breaking. Not the quiet, lonely sobs of a child missing a parent for an hour, but the deep, soul-wrenching kind of pain that clawed at anyone who witnessed it. Clara's heart clenched. Without thinking, she approached him slowly, her nurse's instinct kicking in. She crouched to meet him at eye level, her voice soft, gentle, almost a whisper. "Hey there. Are you okay?" The boy flinched, wiping his face on his sleeve. His eyes, red and watery, were wide with distrust. Clara understood. He wasn't used to strangers, and yet, something about her calm presence seemed to make the storm inside him pause. She stayed there, patient, letting the rain patter around them, her own hands trembling slightly from the long day, but her focus entirely on him. "Hi, I'm Clara," she said, her tone steady, her words warm. "It's okay to cry. Sometimes letting it out makes things a little lighter." It took a long moment. Before the boy muttered a single, barely audible word, "Mom," and that was all Clara needed to know. She wrapped her arms gently around him, careful not to startle him, and held him as he wept, shivering against her chest. She whispered comforting words, words she had repeated countless times in hospital rooms to scared children, to worried families, to adults who thought crying was weakness. But this was different. This was raw, unfiltered sorrow, a grief that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Clara didn't know why, but she felt an instant connection with the boy. It wasn't just compassion. It was a deep, instinctive recognition of pain, the kind that reminded her of her own childhood, of moments she had hidden her tears so no one would see how alone she felt. The boy clung to her, small arms wrapping around her waist, tears soaking her shirt, and for the first time all day, Clara felt that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, Clara led the boy to a nearby bench, sitting beside him, letting him lean against her shoulder. She asked him about school, his favorite games, anything to get him talking. He was hesitant at first, giving only one-word answers. But slowly, as minutes passed, his words grew into sentences, and then stories. Stories of loneliness and misunderstanding, of feeling invisible even in a crowded house. What Clara didn't know, as she sat there in the park, listening to this little boy pour his heart out, was that he was not an ordinary child. He was the son of one of the wealthiest men in the country, a man whose empire spanned continents, whose life was filled with opulence, but whose household was emotionally barren. The boy, Ethan, had everything money could buy: luxury cars, a mansion bigger than most hotels, private tutors, the finest clothes, but he had no one to really listen, no one to hold him when the world felt unbearably heavy. That afternoon, in the rain-soaked park, he had found an unexpected refuge in a stranger's arms. Clara offered him a granola bar from her bag and a bottle of water, simple gestures, yet to Ethan they felt like warmth, like a human connection he had been starved for. She didn't ask about his background, didn't press for names or addresses. She only cared about the small boy who needed a shoulder, who needed someone to believe that his feelings mattered. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Ethan's trembling eased. He began to smile, shyly at first, then with a genuine flicker of happiness that made Clara's chest ache with an inexplicable emotion she couldn't name. Time seemed to stretch in the park that day. The drizzle became a drizzle of golden sunlight breaking through the clouds, illuminating the wet grass and the boy's damp hair. Clara shared stories from her childhood, silly mistakes she had made as a nurse, and the boy laughed, a clear, ringing sound that seemed almost foreign in its rarity. For those few hours, the world outside the park ceased to exist. The fears, the wealth, the loneliness, all of it melted away in the simple magic of human connection. As the afternoon waned into early evening, Clara knew she had to get going. She had responsibilities, patience to see the next day, a life outside the park. But Ethan didn't want her to leave. He clung to her hand, tears brimming once again, though this time they were tears of fear that the moment of comfort might end. Clara knelt, looked into his eyes and whispered, "I'll come back tomorrow, okay? You're not alone, Ethan. You are never alone." She watched him for a moment longer, then stood, brushing mud from her pants. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting was no coincidence. There was something about Ethan, something profoundly fragile yet incredibly resilient, that had lodged itself in her heart. She didn't know then that their paths were destined to intertwine in ways she could never have imagined. For the next few days, Clara returned to the park at the same time, and each day Ethan waited. The trust that had begun to bloom on that rainy afternoon grew into a small, unspoken bond. The boy spoke more freely now, laughed more often, and even shared secrets he had never told anyone. Not his tutors, not his drivers, not even his father. Clara became his confidant, his sanctuary in a world that often overlooked his feelings. But life has a way of revealing truths when we least expect them. One afternoon, as Clara helped Ethan chase a flock of pigeons near the fountain, a sleek black car rolled to a stop at the edge of the park. Out stepped a man in an expensive suit, sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. He moved with a purpose, and when he spotted Ethan, his face softened into a rare paternal smile. Ethan ran to him, and for a moment, Clara felt like she was witnessing a reunion she hadn't expected. The man knelt, enveloping Ethan in his arms, whispering words only a father could know. Clara stepped back, uncertain. She had no idea who this man was, but there was an air of authority, of wealth, that was undeniable. "You must be Ethan's friend," the man said finally, turning to Clara. His tone was polite, almost curious, but there was a subtle edge, a quiet command that reminded her he was used to people noticing him, obeying him. Clara nodded, unsure what to say. The man smiled faintly. "I don't know how to thank you. My son, he rarely opens up. You've done something no one else could. You've made him feel safe." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, just what anyone with a heart might have done. And yet, here was this man, a billionaire, expressing gratitude that felt as profound as it was overwhelming. "You don't need to thank me," she said softly. "I just wanted him to know that he's not alone." The man studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Well, if you ever need anything, or if Ethan ever needs you, don't hesitate. You've changed his world, Clara." For the first time in her life, Clara realized the ripple effect of simple kindness. She had walked into that park to escape her own worries, to find a moment of peace, and had ended up transforming the life of a boy who had everything except someone to truly care. And in doing so, she had reminded herself why she became a nurse in the first place: to heal, to comfort, to be the light in someone's darkest hour. Weeks passed, and Clara continued her visits. Ethan's laughter grew more frequent, his confidence stronger, and his father, now more aware of his son's emotional needs, began to spend more time with him. The little moments of care Clara had shown had created a chain reaction of love and attention that reshaped their lives. And Clara, watching from the sidelines, knew she had found her calling, not just in the hospital but in every act of kindness, no matter how small. Near the end of every day at the park, Clara would look at Ethan and see the spark of joy that had been buried under layers of loneliness. She had no idea she would meet a billionaire's son that rainy afternoon, but she also realized that wealth was never measured in money. It was measured in moments of connection, in the courage to reach out, in the willingness to care. And in that small, muddy park, she had discovered the richest treasure of all, the power to make someone feel truly loved and seen. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Every small gesture of kindness matters, and your engagement helps spread hope and love to others. Before you go, comment below with the person in your life who has made you feel truly seen. It's time to honor them. Clara's life had been changed by a small act of empathy, and Ethan's world had been transformed by her willingness to stop, to listen, to care. And though neither of them could have predicted the other's place in life, one thing was certain: kindness, no matter how unexpected, has the power to rewrite destinies.